I think I agree. I was at a conference last week, and the big thing was like, is AI going to take our jobs? And it's like, no, it's not going to take our jobs, but it will take, jobs away from people that don't use it. And so, I think there's a lot of evolution that happens in marketing. When SEO is the big thing, is the keyword stuff or content, and we thought that was the end all be all of SEO, and then different algorithms started coming out in AI and context of semantic searches and stuff like that. And they were like, oh, I got to do coding now and stuff like that. And so I think it's just a different evolution. And I think there's something to quality checking. Like, it's a large language model. It's applying a numerical value to a term, and it has no context why that term is there. It's just saying that it's predicting the next word. And so if it's saying that this word is number 5, well, the next one's going to be 6. And it's just predicting the next term. And so it has no context about anything at all. And a perfect example is, my wife is a creative director at the art museum, and she's trying to come up with some famous, nice art puns. And I was like, well, let's go to ChatGPT and see what it comes out with. It had no context. It's like, I put in a verb, I gave you a sentence, what more do you want? And so they're horrible. They're not even dad joke like. It was just, so yeah, there's got to be some human element to it where you got to check it and you have to figure out what your output's going to be. If you kind of have an idea of what you want, then yes. And that's where promptless comes into play, right? So people want to take that learning model, put it on their own data set so they don't have to worry about the quality of the output. They just know that what's behind it. They know that it's on their data. They know what to pull out of it, and that's fine. Because right now, when you're working on GPT 3.5 or whatever it is on now, and even 4, it's working on 175 billion parameters. And so you don't know what those parameters are, but when you bring it in-house and create a learning model onto your own data set, you kind of have that control about what the output's going to be. So I think there's a lot of different avenues. There's a lot of evolution. You just have to know which road to take. So.
Thank you. I guess we're all going to echo. I'm not worried about AI taking jobs. And I mean, as a writer, as a communicator, did I feel intimidated at the start of it? Absolutely. I was like, oh, crud. Here's one more thing I have to learn 20 years into my career.
Was the word you used?
Yes, because I have kids. But yeah, how many of you are in digital in some way, or like a practitioner? Okay, how many of you are business owners? So I care about everyone I ask for first. I'm going to come to you. Do you just raise your hand? I think you control, is AI going to take jobs? Because it really comes down to leadership. And what is the intention of leadership? And what does leadership want to do? And how do they want to embrace this? And are they willing to do it with their people with them or to eliminate? So I think you can use AI to create efficiencies. I think that where AI is going to create new jobs, for the first half of the group I just talked to, we have to learn new skills, just like we had to start learning how consumers were using the different features that come out every few months on social media. We had to learn social media for many of us, right? So our jobs will be okay, and we're going to be more marketable if we know how to use them. And we ourselves are going to become innovators and actually business owners or leaders ourselves because of how we use it. But I do think I do think there are some areas at risk, like you said, where there's redundancies, where there's really big efficiencies. But if you can create efficiencies so that the people you have with you can work smarter, it doesn't mean you get rid of the people.
Just retool.
We're freed up to be more creative people, yes. So I think that's how, when you really look at it, there are some people I worry about, right? I had a graphic designer feel threatened when someone was like, well, love your stuff, but let's see what AI can do. I think we have to be careful with, in order to retain employees, I think we have to be careful about the emphasis we put on AI and how we deliver that, because that will help us retain people in a growing space. But, I as I said to this individual, and I do think you guys, both of you echoed it, the human element, you can use AI, but AI is so full of stuff for words. If you're using it from content perspective, not to, process data, et cetera. But if you're using it from a content perspective, there is not the context there. You still have to be savvy enough to know, is this the right message that's going to persuade someone? Am I communicating the right thing? Did ChatGPT suddenly put my prompt in paragraph 3? Yes, it did. That's strange. Let's get it out of there. I encourage my team, use it, but I also, my writers that are that are still developing, or some of my marketers are still developing, I'm like, I don't mind if you use it. I need to make sure that you are a good communicator and you know the strategy before you start using this, because you're going to look at this. Yes, it saved you time, but is it effective? And is it saying the right thing? Does it sound too joyful when this is not a joyful communication piece? ChatGPT is very happy, and Claude and some of these other things are very happy. And there's a lot of filler words. So, like surgeons being able to use a new tool or new technology to do certain procedures, they still need to know their stuff. And I think this is going to continue to be very important as business leaders and as team leaders and digital marketers. We still need to know our stuff. And one of you just said it right, is knowing it and then knowing when to use it.
Right. Yeah.
I like what you said about creatives, and I think we do have to be very careful with artists in particular, that they're empowered and emboldened to be strategic. It feels like from your discussion that maybe data's probably the use case that feels the less threatened, that, being able to corral data and be able to use it, probably where a good place to start. And it also feels like maybe there's more of a generalist mindset that could thrive versus specialist mindset to some degree too. You could take any of these first and talk to them, or we can move on to a different question.
I could see both of those paths. Data is a good use case only because you know you're hoping what the output could be. If you're using ChatGPT 3 instead of 4 to help you do math, there could be some problems. There is a good general rule to it, and I think from a graphic side, it doesn't know spatial awareness, so just like a human element in trying to figure out like what goes where, and that's why early on I had a problem with fingers, right? He's like, you have fingers, what's the problem?
Have you guys ever seen that?
Oh yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. It's fun. We did some playful stuff with some of our staff at a leadership retreat, and everything was great. Then you looked at their hands, and it hasn't quite figured that out yet.
Yeah, and like a use case at work, I had a coworker try to do like a stock image of someone at a bank, and I could tell right away that he didn't put parameters on it, and it had people walking around. There's light coming in from every window, so the sun was all around because it had no idea it's special. It was like, is it daytime? Is it nighttime? I have no. Here's light, and the lights were together. Like there were some lights that had 2, 3, 4, 5 things on them. So it doesn't know spatial awareness. So it needs that, graphic design mentality so that someone on the other end would go, no, you're wrong. Here's where we're going to get stuff, and here's where I want things placed. I want this particular photo to be taken with a Nikon, and show me the simulation of a Nikon photo.
It feels like it does better when there's a very complete thought, right? Like I was talking to an executive yesterday who was on shoot in Amalfi Coast for Fiat, and 48 hours before, one of the key pieces of art that he was going to use got turned down. He couldn't use it.
Yeah,
it was key to his piece, and he was like, I went to ChatGPT, tried to get 20 other examples, and found one that worked. But he had a complete thought at the full commercial and exactly what it was going to look like first, and he just needed that piece entered. It does very good, I feel like, when it has a complete thought.
Yeah, it needs that context around it. Right?
Yes.
And, otherwise, it's going to go buck wild because it's working off of so many other parameters that other people are feeding into it. So when you started using Midjourney, early on, you could probably get superheroes out faster because that's the input that it was getting. But if you try to do something else, or like give me a general person inside of a bank, is like, I guess this is it because I'm getting fed full of like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, but I don't know what a bank person or bank teller is.
Yeah, well, so along those lines, I think in the cases that you referenced earlier about a learning model that's based on your client's data, I suspect that you're jumping through less hoops to get to some type of, maybe not insight, but just the tool bringing up, you might want to look here, than you would if I just give a CSV to ChatGPT, because it has no historical context. It has very little information that I've given it other than, this 60,000 rows of data. So it doesn't know where to look. It doesn't know why to look, whatever else. I will say on the superhero point, has anyone asked Midjourney or any other image generation tool to give you a picture of Aquaman. Anybody done this?
Yeah.
Every single one looks like Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
And so you ask for things that are there are going to be lots of examples of, and you can't get what Aquaman used to be, blonde hair and all that, right? You can't get that.
But Gemini had the exact opposite problem.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And so you really are limited by how much training have you done? How much training has OpenAI done or whatever else to get you to some sort of, even if it's not an insight, just like to point you in the direction of you might want to look here.
Mm-hmm.
If I could build on that, I don't know that AI is ready for us, because it's like we've been given like melted chocolate and we're like, all these things I could do with this.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still so few companies that are actually like at the heart of AI. And we're still dealing with tokens and API pings and bandwidth. So while we want to do things at scale, and we are doing things at scale, it's still taking a while. Sure, is it cutting out human efficiency? Yes, but it's still taking by what we'd like to turn around for clients, sometimes long, with the tools we created with AI, because we can only have a certain amount of API pings or API tokens. Sometimes we're sharing each other's phone numbers, and I've got my phone number attached to 5 other people's accounts. So they're not ready for us yet, as much as it is. So if you start using AI in the context of data or in the context of graphics and content, just know they're still growing, and you might hit some downfalls, like similar to that, like what knowledge does it know? It knows Jason Momoa. It hasn't developed enough yet. It's developed in so many ways, and there's ways we can apply it. But as the users of it, it's like the cat and mouse game. We're ready for more. I want to pay you more. Like, give me more seats. I need more seats. We're not ready to give you more seats. And so, there's going to be some catching up and some accelerating. Mm-hmm. It's a neat space because the demand and what's possible is there. And just think of how many creative people are in this room, what we can do with it, how it can affect medicine, how it could affect traffic volume, how it can affect weather anticipation like today, or how it could affect someone knowing that I purchased something at a store and within 2 weeks there's a new email just because of that. It's all AI generated that touches me because that one purchase I made. That's where the future I like to see it go to for digital marketing.
We've been able to do that for 8 years, is what we've told all the clients.
Right.
I don't know.
This takes 40 people. But it is. I did just I don't know if anyone else is having some of those pains with AI. It's great, but I might need to start getting a few new phone numbers and email addresses to support the capacity.
So what do you guys think are some of the misconceptions? I think you were starting to get to some of that, right? What are more direct misconceptions do you think that the general public has on generative AI and what the actual use case is going to be for marketers?